6:20 on your Monday morning, which means it's time to take a look at your money. 2026 has certainly turned into a wild ride for stock market investors. Soon after the start of U.S. and Israeli military strikes against Iran on February 28th, the U.S. stock market quickly sold off, and over the following 39 days, the S&P 500 stock index fell by almost 9%, while the NASDAQ index declined by 13% almost.
But over the past 2 weeks, the U.S. stock market has roared back to life. On Friday, both the S&P 500 and NASDAQ closed at new all-time record highs. So what's behind this sudden turnaround in the U.S. stock market?
Yes, and we're joined by financial advisor Mark Grywacheski to break it down. Good morning. How you doing, Mark?
Morning to both of you. Great to see you again this Monday morning.
Yes, let's talk about this turnaround with the stock market.
Oh, you gotta love record highs. Well, look, at the start of the year, the three major stock market indexes, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, were all at record highs. But then on February 28th, at the start of that conflict with Iran, we did see this very sharp pullback, not just in the U.S. stock market, but in the global markets as well. Here in the U.S., in just over a month's time, the S&P 500 fell 8.7%. The NASDAQ lost almost 13%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 7.8%. But over the past 2 weeks, we've seen this massive surge, this massive rebound in the U.S. stock market. Again, over the past 2 weeks, S&P 500 gained 12.3%, set a new all-time record high on Friday. The NASDAQ, look at that, up nearly 18% over the past 2 weeks, also setting a new all-time record high on Friday. Friday was the 13th consecutive daily gain for the NASDAQ. That's the longest daily winning streak for the NASDAQ in 34 years. And finally, last but not least, the Dow, up 9.4% the last couple of weeks, closed on Friday just shy of its all-time record high. So yeah, you look at those numbers and yeah, a wild ride for investors over the past month and a half or so.
No kidding. So why have investors been seeing this big turnaround with the market?
Look, all of this volatility we've been seeing in the stock market over the past month and a half all ties back to the price of crude oil. Again, from a barrel of crude oil, we get gasoline, diesel fuel, jet fuel, kerosene, heating oil, and many other energy products that we use. 30% of the world's crude oil comes from the Middle East region. And look, over the past, few weeks or so, that critical waterway called the Strait of Hormuz is where most of that exported crude oil flows from the Middle East out to the rest of the world. And over the past few weeks or so, Iran has really kind of shuttered that Strait of Hormuz. And that's really sent the price of crude oil soaring from, about $67 a barrel all the way up to over $112 a barrel. And the higher the price of crude oil, the greater the negative impact on the U.S. economy. But over the past week, the price of crude oil fallen by about 25%, a barrel of crude oil, now down to about $85 a barrel. So, Wall Street is kind of making this assumption that this conflict and this closure of the Strait of Hormuz will quickly end, and that optimism is being reflected in this rise in the stock market. But we've got to give a big caveat. As we've already seen this weekend, the situation in Iran, the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz, a very fluid and dynamic situation. One day the Strait of Hormuz is open, the next day it's closed, and it's kind of going back and forth. So it wouldn't be surprised if a little bit of this choppiness continues until this Iran situation finally gets sorted out.
Still evolving.
Still evolving, yep.
Lots
on a daily basis, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming in, and we'll see you next Monday.
Good to see you both again. Enjoy the week.